I've been lucky enough in the past year and a half, 2 years, to have a lot of conversations on China. And the people I've talked to have all concurred that the United States has everything from an icy relationship to China, with essentially some have said we're already in a Cold War with China. So when Donald Trump takes the oath of office later this month, he's in charge now. He's our commander in chief. What do you want him? How do you want him to approach China? What are you looking out for next? Because I know you've said that there are a lot of unknowns.
Yes, well, I would like him to sit behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office, address the American people, and say that Xi Jinping talks about going to war all the time, and he's getting ready to go to war, and that the United States needs to start protecting itself because China has been engaged in activities not only against us, but our treaty allies and our friends and partners around the world in ways which are completely unacceptable. President Biden should have done this. We know that Biden thinks about some of these things because he did have, for instance, a very candid conversation with Democratic Party fundraisers in Utah a year and a half ago. But he has not had that conversation with the American people. And his number one constitutional obligation and duty is to protect the American people from foreign attack. And he's failed to do that. So I would like to see Trump have that conversation. Now, that's not Trump's style. But the point is that we are a society that thinks we're at peace, and China is a society that is waging what they consider to be warfare against us. They have this doctrine of unrestricted warfare. They are using fentanyl to kill Americans. That's 70 or 75,000 Americans a year die from a project of the Communist Party, and we're not acknowledging the maliciousness of that, just as one example. So although we're a far stronger society than China, China can take us down because we're not defending ourselves, and the Chinese are attacking us every single day.
To your point, then, how would you like to see the United States defend itself against China? And do you see these escalations between the U.S. and China continuing to ramp up as Trump takes the oath of office and beyond?
Yeah, there will be tensions, I'm pretty sure. But what I would like to see is, first of all, for him to impose those tariffs. Trump in 2018 imposed his 25% tariffs under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, and that was a remedy for the theft of U.S. intellectual property. China still steals somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 billion a year of U.S. IP. So obviously we've got to ramp up those tariffs because we're not deterring the Chinese at all. We're not deterring the Chinese on cyber attacks. We're doing very little to affect their behavior on fentanyl. The list goes on and on. So the tariffs, those are important because Xi Jinping has turned his back on consumption as a sustainable basis for the Chinese economy. His only plan is to export his way out of a grim situation, which means he needs our market, the largest in the world, which is irreplaceable. So I'd like to see him do that. The other thing I'd like him to do is to enforce the Tariff Act of 1930. That prohibits the importation into the U.S. of goods made with forced labor. And many of Chinese goods, and virtually all of their green products, are made with such labor. We need to enforce the law to keep those products out of our country. I think we should be closing down some of the consulates because they've been engaged in activities which are inconsistent with their status. They're violating our sovereignty, they're committing crimes. The list goes on, Brittany, but I believe that we have got to sever our relations with China. The reason is China uses every point of contact to take down our society, and until we can manage this, because we're now being overwhelmed, until we can manage this, we need to cut those links.